as I say to you in the words of der Große Schmendrick, Laks Vobiskum.
Thank you to both sides. We will go here. Hamentashen, would you like to rebut what you just heard?
Yes. Could I?
Yes, you can.
Great. Hey everyone. So while Professor Grafton was speaking, I was sitting and trying to think of what I could write as a rebuttal, and I have to admit that he did have me stumped. He spoke a little bit about seeing the universe in a different way, and to some extent that is the only rebuttal that I had written down. If Professor Grafton could please stand up. All I had written, please stand up, Professor Grafton. All I had written as my rebuttal was Professor Grafton's tie.
The Latke is the model of the cosmos.
Yeah. And while I do appreciate Professor Grafton's so-called circular logic, the sentiment of the Latke as a circle or ellipse is touching if they were to ever come out properly at all. See, the Latke, while difficult to get in that spherical circular shape, is also quite simple to make in the first place, versus the Hamentashen. As I sat and thought about it, I realized I have no idea how I would make a Hamentashen, but I know how I would make a Latke. Here's a quiz for you. Which is the recipe for which? The Latke is also a dangerous thing that we must watch out for. This is an image that I found of Top Chef Tom Colicchio testifying against latkes for burning someone as the oil from the pan jumps out from the pan and scalds your skin. It's a dangerous sport, and I understand that those who support latkes may argue for the cosmos and may argue for the revolution that it has to Christian thought, but we also like to think of Christian thought as the large cause of a lot of harm and a lot of murder. It's okay if you like murder. Lots of people like murder. Scott Peterson, star from The Lion King. Baltimore Ravens linebacker Ray Lewis. And the lady for murder she wrote, who while she never murdered anyone is the single most boring person ever. Professor Grafton left us with more to be said. He said, but we'll let it pass. It's a difficult thing to do with a Latke. Here are just some things that I picked up, some quotes from the internet, which makes them very trustworthy. Evil villains love the Latke. Specifically, Professor Grafton, who he himself stood up here and spoke for far longer than he was allotted, proving to me that all professors at Princeton secretly plot against us to make it next to impossible for us to complete the work that we have been assigned. Is that who defends the Latke? Because I wouldn't want to vote for the side who defends that. Winners support the Hamentashen. Ricky and I are in the same creative writing class with Jeff Eugenides, a highly demanded class. Ricky did not sleep that night and camped out in front of New South. While Ricky was doing that, I slept. Showed up at 8:45 in the morning, 15 minutes before sign-ups began. Signed up for a course. I was the only person in it. They canceled it, and I switched into Professor Eugenides' class while Ricky was camping outside. I was sleeping. Who's the winner here? Hamentashen. That's the winner. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Amy Solomon. It's great to be here at Princeton University. Seeing so many good friends out here tonight, I want to thank Princeton for their generous hospitality and putting me and every other directional adjective all over this country. We've listened to anxious town meetings in states ranging from South Carolina to Iowa, from Massachusetts to New Mexico, from Ohio to Pennsylvania. And though their accents and twangs may have differed, and though I may have only just mentioned swing states important to the upcoming election, the sentiments we lack is soaked up like the oil we are cooked in every classroom, break room, back office, and waiting room struck the same chords. That people are tired of the great Hamentashen recession and they want change. I've heard of dream after dream deferred. And let me tell you, I've heard stories that frankly break my heart. And let me also tell you what I rarely heard from our American people: hopelessness. Americans refuse to believe that this troubled time under Hamentashen rule is our destiny. I've heard time and time again a constant refrain: this is not the America that we love, not the Jewish food we love, and not the America we deserve. We will not surrender our dreams to the failures of Hamentashen. We are bigger than the misguided policies and weak leadership of one-page street and its foreign, often undocumented fillings. We must realize that this is an election not to simply replace one cultural Jewish food with another, though the successor is clearly a better food, but to save a vision of America. It's a choice between two very different, clear destinies. One is tasty and round, and reflective of America in its varying shapes and sizes. And the other is triangular socialism with low approval ratings. Latkas have a vision of a very different America than Hamentashen, no matter what the Hamentashen supporters may have tried to sell you on this evening. The Latka view of America is an America united by our not by our limits, but by our dreams, our ambitions, our shared hopes, and the everlasting, unbreakable loop of the Latka that cannot be stunted or even hindered by one Hamentashen's failure. Now, I'm not just going to stand up in here and spit out rhetoric, as though it may seem. I'm actually going to get to the issues, unlike Hamentashen, who have gone out there and played 90 rounds of golf while there are 25 million Americans out of work. Let's get to the facts. During Hamentashen's time in office, the price of gasoline has doubled, and Hamentashen said no to the Keystone Pipeline. Hamentashen, by their very nature, do not understand oil like Latkas do. There's $15 trillion of debt, and Hamentashen said, look, we're going to put ourselves out into another $1 trillion for human care. Hamentashen are soft on immigration. They want to let in all sorts of imports like apricots, poppy seeds, God knows what else, when their fillings could be filled by flavors here in America that are out of work. Hamentashen's decision not to release their financial statements is questionable at best. And I don't think I even need to remind you that Latkas are the only U.S. veterans that have stood on this stage tonight. All of this should convince you not that you even needed convincing that it is imperative that we beat Hamentashen. This is, I believe, the most dangerous pastry leader of our lifetime. And if Hamentashen are re-elected after the disaster they have been, the level of crummy radicalism that their second term will bring will be truly frightening. In direct contrast with Hamentashen's record for the past year, Latkas have consistently created jobs, especially around Hanukkah. We might mention is 8 times longer than Purim. And it's a holiday founded on a deep understanding of energy policy. Throughout our entire long career, as Professor Grafton so eloquently illustrated for us earlier, Latkas have worked to try and build enterprises, and there are many successful examples of this, most notably sour cream and applesauce. I know we're going to get hit hard by Hamentashen, but we're going to stuff Latkas down their throats and point out that it is capitalism, freedom, and Latkas that make America so strong. In their time in office of the past year, Hamentashen have successfully reversed John Kennedy's noble call for sacrifice. Hamentashen have had Americans ask, what can Hamentashen do for you? Not only is this the wrong question to be asking, the answer is nothing. Hamentashen are okay straight. The most they can do for you is get schmutz in your teeth. Now I want to turn to a couple of slides I've prepared. The first couple are just a couple of frightening images that you may have already seen, but I want to bring back to the forefront in the media. John Stewart. And now, while there have been many examples of corruption and inappropriate use of power in the Hamentashen administration, I never expected to find even more examples of this here on campus, but sadly I have. This semester, I am in Professor Waylu's class entitled History of Race, Drugs, and Drug Policy. I found the first lecture to be excellent, but by the second lecture, Professor Waylu had found out that his debate opponent, me, was in his class. Now, in the middle of the second lecture, this slide came up. It looks like a from 30 to 200 per 1,000 Latke birds, compared with 5 per 1,000 for Hamentashen. Now, I take a lot of issues with this statement. First of all, it is utterly irrelevant to the lecture. It is a simple personal attack from a professor against a student, which is completely inappropriate. Also, when this slide came up, there was a lot of audible confusion in the room as I see the Professor Whaley laughed an evil, evil laugh. The other main issue that we Latkes take with this slide is that Hamentashen know that Latkes have always had an issue with maternal mortality. And improving the care Latke mothers get should be a bipartisan issue that Hamentashen are willing to work with. Now, if you come onto our side this evening, Latkes will continue to do what they're doing now, preaching the gospel of liberty. We have strayed from the recipe that the Founding Fathers so perfectly laid out with specific ingredients. The ingredients were oil, eggs, and the stuff that comes in the Manischewitz box. That is what we need. We have drifted a long way, and it involves our right to life and our right to our liberty. We ought to be able to keep the Latkes of our labor. We need to defend Latke liberty. We need to return to the principles upon which this country was founded. Hamentashen have said in a very revealing way that they want to fundamentally transform America. They're wrong. We need to restore the values that made America the hope of the earth. And Latkes understand those values. We will defeat Hamentashen and keep America as it's always been, the shining Latke on a hill. Thank you, and God bless you.
So we now turn to the question time. Let me start with a question for each side. So, Hamentashen's side, Amy brought up a number of points about debates and the political climate. My question for you is, what do you think Rick Perry would prefer?
I defer, I suppose, on this question, I think it's best to consider Rick Perry's stance on capital punishment. And given his surprising affinity, talent for, and appreciation for killing others, I can only imagine that he would indeed prefer Latkes.
So can I add to that?
Yes.
I happen to have a historical reference here. In July 1882, moments before he was sent to the gallows, and this relates, of course, to death penalty policy in Texas. Moments before he was sent to the gallows for the crime of assassinating President Garfield, the assassin, Charles Guiteau, requested a final meal. You can probably guess what he asked for. You know what he asked for? A pound of boiled steak, a slice of toast, a lot of coffee, and, of course, fried potato. He didn't say whether he wanted applesauce on it or not, but I think that tells you exactly, as my colleagues just said, what Rick Perry would say.
Those three things. Okay, for the Latkes side, we talked about various shapes, but I was in Israel for Hanukkah one year. They didn't eat latkes. They ate donuts. How do you fit that into your rambling history?
Thank you for asking that question. I would say, taking my evidence here from the chapter Bubameisen of Medrash Mendrick, the second book written by that great character, that the donut simply represents the sublimation, the intensification, and perhaps the quantum elaboration of the cosmic force of the Latke. It's a Latke for a more sophisticated age. Fit for the graduates of the Technium.
I just think Latkes are better.
Let me open it up for questions from the audience. Yes.
So I'm just wondering what you think about the symbolism of the Latke versus the Hamentashen, because to me it seems that the Latke represents, religious freedom and triumphing over adversity, Whereas the Hamentashen represents, you know, disgracing your enemies and humiliating them in really outrageous food products. And I'm wondering if the Latke people would like to comment on that, and the Hamentashen.
He's not a plant.
I agree with that, and I also prefer the warmth and generosity of the Pestka holiday to the loud drunkenness of Purim. One of the great advantages of us Latkes is that we remain conscious while we celebrate.
I think you're misreading the Latke and Hamentashen. I mean, the Latke is a celebration of zealotry. And I'm not sure this is something that we need to endorse, especially in these times, in this year in particular. I think the other thing to say is that as the slides I've documented through U.S. history demonstrate, the Hamentashen has always been a moment that symbolized coming together. Families working with their children, children working with each other, building a common sense of unity. And if you need anything in this country today, in this highly partisan political environment, is what the Hamentashen symbolizes.
Yes, and the Hamentashen, when you think about it, its shape is a triangle. It really is the ultimate in structural stability. Compared to the zealotry and instability of a Latke, you cannot stand a Latke up. You cannot